Good evening. We call to order the regular meeting of West Valley City Council. We are starting late. Our study meeting that we hold just before this ran over as we discussed a number of issues. And because we have a fairly short agenda, why, except that we have 3 more meetings after this one. So, but that's okay. We'll stay here till we're done. We note that all council members are present tonight, and with that, we'll turn to Councilman Tom Hune for our opening ceremony.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to invite all of you to stand up and do the pledge with us. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. We always check and see if we have any scouts here. Oh, are there some over there? Okay. Generally, we invite each group to come up because we ask the young men to do it, and because they're minors, we don't get personal information like names, but we say your troop number, why you're here, what you're working on, and just what part of the city, like schools you attend or something. So there was one here on the close to the front. Do you have one of the scouts ready to do that? Maybe not willing, but okay. So come up here to the microphone. Yeah, you can pull that down. Your troop number?
947.
And what are you working on here tonight?
My community, I think.
Citizenship in the community?
Yeah.
A merit badge? Okay. And
Then I have to
what school do you attend?
Neil Armstrong Academy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is it just you, or is there? In that same group. We have another group back here, or are you all together?
Together.
Okay. And you all go to Neil Armstrong Academy? No?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's all the scouts. No elected officials. We can get to our regular business now then. First of all, our minutes of April 24th. Need a motion on the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 24th.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Passes unanimously. Our minutes are approved. Next, we go to our Employee of the Month award, and we turn to Councilman Bueller for that.
Thank you, Mayor. The Employee of the Month is Michelle Siller from the Victim Advocate Office. Could you please stand? Let's see who you are. And I'll read the nomination, which was made by Paul Lozano. On January 25th, 2018, as I was leaving work early, and we'll have to investigate that, I saw a folder on the wet ground by my vehicle in the City Hall parking lot. It was titled Papeles Importantes, Important Papers. I looked in the folder, and there were all sorts of documents that would be of value to a person. I found a document referencing a sex offense and other victim services papers where it appeared the owner was the victim of a sex offense. I took this folder to West Valley Police Department Victim Services and spoke with Michelle Siller. I explained to her what I had found and my concern that the owner would need these papers. Believing it was one of their clients, I thought they could easily get in touch with the owner. It was also helpful that Michelle speaks Spanish. Michelle took the documents with a smile and said she would do her best to get them back to the owner. I received an email from Michelle on March 13th, 2018, advising me that she had finally located the owner after multiple calls to multiple people and agencies, none of whom responded back to her. This did not stop her. She took it upon herself to send letters to all the addresses listed in the folder of documents. The female owner called Michelle and then came to pick up her items. It appears that the woman suffered a mental and emotional breakdown after the sex offense and has many stressful situations going on. Michelle was then able to further help this woman by referring her to resources and getting her treatment. Michelle's diligence was able to make it possible for this woman to obtain her important papers, but also to help her with other mental and emotional needs. Thank you, Michelle. Your hand, we'd like to shake your hand, and we have something for you up here. So here's a certificate for you.
What, for me to go?
You can put this anywhere you want and tell everybody to change their street. Okay, 1, 2. Now, if you have some important people that are supporting you here, we'd like you to introduce them to us. Michelle?
I'm sorry, what?
If you have some important people that are here to support you, we'd like you to introduce them
My
to us.
wonderful boss, Rochelle Hill, and Eric, they're amazing. I love them. They're so supportive. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without their support. So they get a lot of credit.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is our comment period. We have a lot of people here. We will outline the general process. Since some people signed up,
What?
if you're here to speak to our, let's see, nope, it's just the resolution, so don't have that. So you can take up to 5 minutes. We set aside typically a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment. And so I'll just call on these first. If we get done sooner, I'll just ask for volunteers if anyone else wants to speak. Your comments are directed to the mayor by tradition. Also, it is not a debate. It is not a question and answer period. It is your time to present information, comments, whatever you want. And after the public comment period is finished, then we turn to the city manager and council if they wish to respond. We do limit that somewhat because we cannot have a policy discussion by state law without it being on our agenda and posted for everyone else to come and hear.
Got my
So,
watch?
if issues are brought up that are not on our agenda,
This is my watch.
which I'm sure they won't be,
No,
we will take note of those and we follow up in our next study meeting, as we did earlier this evening. You left a little early. We got to some of those. For example, last week was brought up parking in Highbury. We're going to include that in a study that we had decided to take, that they be a part of that to determine what's the right thing and the way to treat that. So we will be including that. So that's kind of the process we go through. So if we don't respond much here, that's the way it's supposed to work. We'll have more of a discussion later, and it may require us to actually spend some time going and doing some work and evaluating. So that was just to give you an idea. So with that, then we'll start right down the list. Julie Pace. And by the way, you can speak on anything you want. We can't. So just so you're aware, any topic's open to you.
Thank you for listening to us this afternoon. My name is Julie Pace and I live at 5296 Gateshead Drive. I'd like to talk about the rezoning of the 12-acre parcel at Highbury. Currently in Highbury at Lake Park, there are 978 households, 196 single-family homes, 498 apartments with Liberty Commons and Pinnacle, 284 townhomes with Ivory, Ivory East, and Garbett. That gives us 20% single-family homes, 51% apartments, 29% townhomes. We need more single-family homes to balance out our community. Once the percentages are even, then I think it would be perfectly fine to add more townhomes. There's plenty of transient housing within our community, and we need long-term residents who want to raise a family here and not just make it a place of where they once lived. West Valley in their general plan seeks large homes on large lots. Taken from the general plan, it reads, based on the city's moderate income housing plan for 2014, the city has substantial amount of affordable housing for moderate income households, those at 80% of the median household income for Salt Lake County. What is lacking in the city is higher value housing. West Valley already has data that states the city is lacking higher value housing. Rezoning to add medium density housing does not meet this requirement. Again, from the general plan, Vision West Valley City should continue to maintain its diverse mix of housing for people of different ages, income, and ethnicities. Given the substantial supply of moderate income housing, the city should encourage higher value housing and quality architecture and amenities such as trails, parks, and open space. Any new high-density development should only be considered in very particular instances and should be within walking distance of substantial transient infrastructure. I do not believe that this community is a very particular instance. Our community is a very sought-out place to live, and more single-family homes would greatly increase property value. If Garbett can't deliver what West Valley deserves, then they are not the right builder for our city. Newton Farms is a new development on 6400 West and about 3700 South. I contacted them asking how large their homes are, lot size and square footage, and asked how the homes are selling. This is the response I got. We have lots ranging from 0.30 acre to nearly half acre. Ramblers have a minimum of 2,000 square feet on a main floor. 2 stories have a minimum of 3,000 square feet above grade. We have plans that go from these minimums and will build custom plans. We started selling in late fall last year and now have most of our 27 lots in phase 1 are either sold or reserved and are starting the infrastructure on phase 2. There are currently 5 lots already reserved in phase 2. We have 2 homes completed, a third due for final inspection next week, 4 more under construction with 2 more basements scheduled to be dug in the next few days. This proves that large homes on large lots will sell in our city. We do not need to settle for townhomes when keeping the zoning as single-family homes can be more profitable in the long run. Please do not push the single-family homeowners out, because if you rezone the parcel, this is exactly what will happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ralph Werner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I brought my notes with me, but I think I'm just going to set those aside. I'm going to direct this mainly to Mr. Bigelow. You may know me. We were neighbors at one time. We lived in Hunter. I lived on Milos Drive. I think you might remember me. Hunter is a nice area. It's in West Valley. You know, I lived there for 15 years and I didn't know 3 of my neighbors. Look around me right now. I know all of my neighbors in Highbury. Why is that? Because we're all dedicated to one thing, making our neighborhood good and great. When I lived in Hunter, we had a high density called Academy Park. Academy Park brought a lot of trouble to our neighborhood in Hunter, Milos. It was bad. I moved out for one specific reason, to live in a lower density neighborhood and to get to know my neighbors. I've done that. You can see that we're all united. We're here together. All we ask is that you keep us in low density, the homes will sell, they will sell. And we don't need things like more street lights. Take a look at Dayberry Drive and 3100 South, not too far from Miss Karen Lang's property. Right there by the West Valley Park. Getting out of Highbury right now is hard to get onto 3100 South. If you add more high-density homes, you're going to have more traffic. The city may have to look down the future at a street light right there at that intersection. I don't believe with low density you're going to get enough people to move in that you will need a street light. What's a street light, traffic light run? About $500K plus all the maintenance. It's not cheap. So I don't think it balances out. We would like you to keep the zoning as it is, single-family homes. Thank you for your time.
Next is Sean Black.
So Mayor, my name is Sean Black. I live at 5356 Sefton Drive. I live in the property right behind, I live right in front of the property that's being proposed for the Garbutt Homes for that application to change the zone. I just want to mention my concerns about a few things. First, on Lake Park Boulevard, right there at 2690 South, it's a main thoroughfare for the commuters traveling back and forth to IHC, Discover, Verizon, and other businesses east of the proposed site. It gets very congested there during the morning and the evening commute, especially with the roundabouts. The Pinnacle Highbury Apartments, which is a lot east of the proposed location, had very poor planning, as you've heard, because of the parking, and it's getting crazy. I have a quick map here. As you see in the blue, I actually live right here. So on Friday, Saturday nights, the parking goes all the way down to the blue mark that I have here on this map. I can't imagine what the new complex is going to do. A lot of us are also, as you've heard, tired of the elements at times that the apartments can bring. There's no parking south side of the street that I have right here on the red mark, and that's partly due to the dangers the Pinnacle Apartments bring to the kids coming back and forth from the Neil Strong Academy. I have a couple of kids that go there, and we do have concerns as we walk them back and forth with all the cars coming and going and not being able to see with all the parked cars. I think you'll have a lot better reception if you look at the type of townhomes, if we are going to go that route. You see on 5400 South, it's already there on Dayberry Drive, but we ask that you do stick with the single family homes. We hear from Garbutt, and I don't know if this is true, that part of the reason why they're looking the route they're looking at is because there's a minimum, I guess, of 4,000 square feet. I wasn't able to verify that, but if that's the case, I think we should drop it so we can be able to make that possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Greg Bemis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Greg Bemis, 2902 South Darlington Drive. I spoke before you last week on a couple of the bullet points that I had about decreased valuation of homes and concerns with that, and how, I had made an investment and I wanted to maintain that investment. Also, the deviation from the master plan. If apartments become the dominant dwelling, then that has negative outcomes. I would like to just address very briefly a couple other points, and one of those which has been addressed is about the diminished opportunities for homeowners to move into a more upscale home in this area. This drives homeowners who would like to stay where they are here in West Valley City out. And the second item is that with all the home construction taking place in this valley, this place is in the news. Utah's in the news. Our market is so tight, and we know that it's difficult to believe that we can't get a developer there who can bring something in. And to finish that, I would like to add that in our community we have 2 homes listed. One has, I guess, is under contract now. These houses are going for $500,000. They're in our same community. These are not gigantic homes. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, an investment. And if these homes in here can go for that now, then surely we can look at some other alternatives for this proposed change. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon. Paul?
Oh, I knew. Happens all the time. It's Paul. It's German from Polashevsky, shortened down. My grandpa thought it would be a lot easier to say, but nobody can say Paul anyways, so I don't know if that helped. So as you said, my name is Brandon Paul. I live in the Highbury Place neighborhood in Karen Lakes district. I'm here representing my family and also on behalf of the Highbury Place residents, as I'm on the HOA board. So my wife and I decided to build in Highbury here after seeing the beautiful houses and yards during a drive around the neighborhood in West Valley. That reminded me of my neighborhood growing up. As an ex-girlfriend once told me, it's Leave It to Beaver neighborhood. It is It's a really nice neighborhood, as you guys know. We were then living in Kearns, looking for a neighborhood that looked like people really cared and respected. So we built. That was about 2 years ago. We had the intentions of building as a permanent residence, so something that we could stay in, not gonna leave. I wanted to speak about the proposed rezoning by Garbutt Homes. I also recognize the parking issues. I think we really hit that one on the head last week. I'm not going to talk about that today. But I want to also talk about another issue that's been brought on by the apartment complex. That issue is increased gang and drug activity. My house is adjacent to the canal entrance on the south side of Highbury Homes along the canal. My house is right next to the entrance, and several times since the apartments, I've had my fence vandalized with graffiti, gang tags, multiple gang tags, not just one, many different. In fact, at one point, I caught somebody red-handed in the act. I've had several cars pull up next to my house, in front of my house actually. They'll stop and they will, I always know what they're doing, because there'll be some teenagers in the car and they'll just be sitting there putting together something, and then they'll all get out of the car at once. They'll walk down the canal, walk behind our houses, and they'll just light up. I've had, most of the time they're just joints, but I've had some people be as brazen to actually bring a bong and go right out in the back. Obviously, I don't like that, being a homeowner. I've called the non-emergency line every single time, as well as taken a picture of the cars, their license plate, and even sometimes the kids that are out there. To this day, I haven't had police respond quick enough to actually make any arrests or issue any tickets. So I'm afraid that the data doesn't actually reflect the actual activity that's going on, if you go to look at it. Going back to my family. We now have a 7-week-old baby, and I'm having a hard time seeing our future here as permanent, like I once did. I feel the neighborhood's a little bit more unsafe than it was when we first moved in, before the apartments. And I feel like, it just isn't the same neighborhood as we fell in love with when we first moved in. I'm asking that you vote no to rezoning based upon the problems that come with a medium to high density neighborhood. Keep it a single family zone neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, Matt McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have another stack of letters I'd like to give to the county recorder when we're done as well. I gave you about a dozen last week. I've got maybe 2 dozen this week as well. Since we've already kind of spoken a lot about both of the issues that really we're all here about, one is the rezoning of that lot, and the other one is the problems that have come from the existing infrastructure that we have right now being, in our opinion, it's not sufficient. As Julie Pace had mentioned, the percentage breakdown of our current low density to high and medium density seems a little out of whack. We found out recently that many of our surrounding areas that are currently undeveloped have been rezoned since we moved into medium density as well. And we can expect probably that to be built, I would guess, at some point in the future. But on top of that, as Brandon had mentioned just recently, is the other factors that have been plaguing our community that's been getting worse. Just last week, I bring up tenderly, we had a resident, 14-year-old boy who lived just a few hundred feet from the location where this happened. Just one of our quiet neighborhood streets that was assaulted and beaten by a gang of 10 to 15 kids, all living in those apartments. And these kids roam our waterways, our canals, our parks, our park strips, all private property areas. And not to mention the roads and the parking. The parking brings with it its own problems. We have loitering, we have littering, we have noise complaints, we have vandalism, we have theft. That's all increased dramatically since these parking issues, which really have stemmed from the Pinnacle community. In addition to the to the task force it sounds like you've put together to review these parking issues. I've also spoken with Steve Pastorik at Planning and Zoning, and in discussions with him and with the management at the Pinnacle Apartments, we believe that they are not to code when it comes to their parking, and that the most recent audit done by the Planning and Zoning Committee did not take a manual count of their parking. In fact, they relied purely, according to Steve, on their numbers. We have done our own counts. We went with their building management there. Based on their numbers, there is absolutely no way that they can support their own residents. For example, their 3-bedroom apartments, their leases allow up to 3 vehicles. The city only requires them to have 2 parking spaces. And those 2 parking spaces can be a single garage space and the space in front of their garage, which is how they count it in most cases. Those garages are primarily used for storage and not for parking. And that is confirmed by the city, by the apartment management there. Taking into account all of this information, there's no wonder why there are 200 cars on the neighboring roads in our communities, as well as they've told me they're getting complaints now from the movie theater and the Target parking lot, which is up to 2 blocks away from parking from their residents overnight. This is a serious issue for those people that live in these apartments. We don't have anything against them individually, but we are seeing these problems being pushed into our neighborhood that we think that the city has some way of helping us with it. We don't have any power at this point to solve this problem. We've seen a step up from the police department to help with enforcement of the existing parking signage. We had Public Works come out last week and make some minor corrections to our bridge signs that I think due to some communication errors, they were not moved properly and didn't do anything, unfortunately, to solve our problem. But we've been assured that that will be resolved shortly. So we are seeing some improvements to the existing signs and the roads. What that has unfortunately done, as we predicted last week when we were here, is push that problem just further, deeper and deeper into our homes, which has led to even more of these problems. So again, we ask that you not only vote no on the proposed zoning change, but you consider very carefully the existing codes and the enforcements that can be done by the city to look at Pinnacle, because their management is on our side. They were going to come here today, we're unable to, but they believe that it would take some sort of force from the city at this point to change their minds. Thank you.
Thank you. PJ Webster.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'd like to echo what Matt McPherson just said. You know, we really do not hold anything against the people that are living in the Pinnacle apartment complex. You know, we want them to be successful as well. One of the major problems that I personally have seen is that the problems that we experience don't happen in the Pinnacle apartments. People park their cars in our neighborhood and dump their trash there and leave their own community nice. I feel that this is going to making a high-density neighborhood next to these Pinnacle apartments will just amplify that problem. They'll have their neighborhood looking nice while at the expense of our neighborhood. And really we want there to be, as many of the other people in our neighborhood have said, we want this to be the Leave It to Beaver neighborhood. We want this to be a good, clean, wholesome community. And I feel like the problems that come from these other locations spill into our neighborhood, and that's not one thing we want. One thing that hasn't come up that I would like to mention is I feel that if we are to expand make the high density home ownership in this area, or the high density program, we will overcrowd Neil Armstrong Academy. It's a sought after school. A lot of kids from all over the valley are trying to get into this school because it is a STEM school. It's one of the few in the valley. If we have more kids in these high density area, we'll have less opportunities for our kids. Our kids will have less one-on-one time with their teachers. We will have a decrease in our own children's education at the expense of adding just more properties. I don't feel that this is a good trade-off. I think that we can earn the value of our homes and of this property sufficiently if we keep it at low density as proposed. The parking has been brought up, it is an issue. The only thing that I will say is that if you do an investigation at it, look at the Garbett homes, the townhomes that are there currently. They still have people parking on the street and the busy streets near the roundabouts. That's really all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Jason Miller.
I'm Jason Miller. I live at 5378 Sefton Drive in the same Highbury neighborhood as virtually everyone else here. I'd like to express my opposition to the proposed change of zone R18 from low density residential to medium density. A quiet neighborhood with wide tree-lined streets, pond, waterways, walking paths, full of well-maintained homes and groomed yards, within walking distance to shopping, dining, and recreation. A neighborhood where homeowners take obvious pride in where they live. Doesn't that sound nice? That is Highbury. I'm one of those homeowners, and that is why I bought a home in Highbury. I've lived there for 5 years or so. Previously, I was in another area of West Valley, but that neighborhood was torn down by the Mountain View corridor. Before I saw the house that I'm currently in, I didn't think West Valley actually had an area as nice as Highbury is. But when I saw that house and the neighborhood, I was done shopping. I had no interest in looking anywhere else. I was in love. Still am. We've got some new problems, but they can be solved. I'm sure you know that our city does not have the greatest reputation, and I've seen negative reactions from people when I tell them where I live. But I can also tell you that Highbury can change people's opinions of West Valley. I've had friends come visit my house who hadn't been there before who were shocked at how nice the area was. Really? I didn't know anything like this was out here. It's great, you know. People really like it. Let's see. Something that nice should be maintained, should be protected. Right now that is in jeopardy. I cannot put into words how strongly I oppose the idea of changing this area from single unit residential to multiple unit. You heard last week and again today from many of these people of the serious problems we're currently experiencing because of the Highbury apartments. Problems such as crime, traffic, safety, graffiti, and more. I won't go into detail on those except to say that I've had my home broken into. I've seen the traffic problems by having a Subaru driven through my back fence into my backyard. I've helped neighbors clean graffiti from areas of the neighborhood. Other than that, I will certainly acknowledge at this point those problems are going to be difficult to solve or even to mitigate, but it can be done. But more importantly, please don't allow those problems to become worse by approving this rezoning. Please do not. The realist in me thinks that it is possible that some members of the council may like to see this change happen. The skeptic in me thinks that the motivation for that change might be more quick development of the area and, more importantly, the increased tax revenue that would come from that relatively quickly. Please prove my inner skeptic wrong. Please vote against that. Please do not let that zoning change happen. In closing, I'd like to invite all of you to come visit Highbury in case you haven't. Come see our wide tree-lined streets, our pond, our waterways and walking paths, our well-maintained homes and groomed yards. Please come and see what it is that we're asking you to protect and preserve. If you are going to come visit, I'd recommend right about this time of night, especially right now with the trees blooming, everything else around sunset. It's beautiful. So please come out and take a look if you haven't seen it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Luana Biddle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Luana Biddolph. I live at 5221 Gateshead Drive and have been there for 9 years. We were one of the first homes in the neighborhood. We moved from the Daybreak area in South Jordan. Everyone thought we were crazy for moving to West Valley, but they hadn't seen Highbury. And my husband is a West Valley city business owner, which is what brought us here. couple issues. First of all, Pinnacle, the parking. Pinnacle has had a parking issue since day one. Now it is becoming a real problem for homeowners who live directly south of Pinnacle. Parking on Highbury Parkway is congested and the bike lane is no longer a bike lane. It's a parking lot. And I will also mention, in the last week, I have been almost hit twice taking my children to school in that intersection between Pinnacle and Highbury. Pinnacle has 290 units, 109 uncovered parking stalls, 94 covered parking stalls, 174 garages, plus additional tandem parking behind the garage. That equals 377 parking stalls, or 551 with tandem parking, using the space in front of the garage. Per city code, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments get 1 parking stall, and 3-bedroom apartments get 2 parking stalls. If Pinnacle sticks to this requirement, and that then require that garages must be parked in, and the parking spot behind the garage is used, then there is plenty of parking. But Pinnacle is in violation of city code. Lease agreements allow 2 cars per 1 to 2-bedroom apartment and 3 cars per 3-bedroom apartments. With these terms, there is not enough parking. If every unit has 2 cars, Pinnacle is short 30 stalls, and if garages and tandem parking are not utilized, Pinnacle is short 174 parking stalls. Highbury Parkway and the neighborhood cannot be an overflow parking lot for an apartment complex. That is in violation of city code. Our neighborhood is not a parking lot. That is not what we paid for. That is not why we moved here, and that was actually not in the plan as far as I know when we purchased our lot in Highbury. If Pinnacle is not going to be part of the solution, then the problem will persist and never get solved, no matter how loud we complain or no matter how many no parking signs the city puts up. People still park there, get their tickets, and park there again. There's not enough manpower to patrol Highbury Parkway every day, which creates a lack of enforcement. I still see cars parked on the bridge right in front of the no parking signs. They don't care. And then just to echo some of the other issues that have happened, we have seen an increase. This is not the Highbury that we moved into 9 years ago. We've seen, just since the apartments have been there, an increase in graffiti, in theft. My children's bikes were stolen, sitting right in front of the garage, and it was still daylight. In a cul-de-sac at my sister's house, who also lives in the neighborhood, we convinced them to move from Texas to join us in Highbury. And they have been a little unsure about that decision since they have been here and seen this increase in problems. But we didn't have those problems before Pinnacle came. And originally when we moved in, where the newer townhomes are, that was all zoned for single-family homes. That has been changed since we moved in. We did not agree with that, but basically it happened anyways, and we're strongly opposed to that happening again, because that's not the Highbury that we moved into, and that's not what we want. But I believe it'll just escalate the problems that we're already seeing that have happened since Pinnacle has come along. And I've personally got several friends who moved into the neighborhood about the same time as us and have moved out because of their concerns of raising a family in this area that's getting more and more like the rest of West Valley. So, thank you.
Thank you. And then Mike Markham.
Mike Markham. She knows my address. I want to thank these people for getting together and coming here and speaking about this, because this parking issue is a problem, and some of the other things that I've tried to talk about for years now and get a total deaf ear. Parking is not an issue with this city. Multiple family dwellings is not an issue with this city. So I'm glad maybe now somebody here with maybe more clout than I do and some other people that have tried to talk to you about parking, we might be able to work towards getting something done to make our neighborhood safe, to where more than one car can drive down the road when they park across the street from each other. prior to my wife passing away, her and my daughters got to where they wouldn't walk through our neighborhood because there's one house particular that has been turned into a dormitory, and they got tired of the cat calls. So I hopefully with listening to these people, you won't think I'm crazy, and the other people that have talked about some of our parking issues and problems here. Maybe we need to muster up some power and like I stated once before, and look and see where our votes are geared to people that want to show the same interest in our city that we do. Some of these people are talking, they've been here for 9 years. I've lived in my house in West Valley for 40 years, 45 years. I don't plan on leaving. I can't afford to leave, because for me to buy the same house on the other side of town is another $100,000. Location, location, location. So, you know, these poor people that went in, moved in, my family's grown and gone. I'm almost to the point where I speak up now. I don't care if the neighbors like me or not. I want a nice neighborhood. They can take me or leave me, and a lot of them have left me, but it's amazing how many people will come and support me on the QT that we need to do something with the state, so, or with this, with the city and the direction that they're choosing to take us. I hopefully you're thinking about the parking issue now. I just heard that you okayed the very high density zoning for the Kmart property on 4100 in Redwood. That'll be a great fit. You got the Smiths across the street. I don't know if any of you have ever parked or shopped in that, and they're all talking about, oh yeah, people do the self-checkout, get halfway through, pick up their stuff and leave. You've got, used to be Kings Row apartment, it's Boulder Pines now right behind it. There's always things going on in the apartments along 3900 South, both in our side and in the Taylorsville side, but yet you continue to vote for apartment developments in West Valley City. One time you say you don't want them, another time you're okay with them. Then you want big houses, then you want apartments. What do we want in the city? You know, I've been mustered up and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm doing the Citizens Police Academy or whatever it's called. I missed last week and I'm going through it. I think maybe everybody here needs to go to it and see and listen to what goes on. You know, I'm learning a lot. They had one crash on 4100 South and 40th West. Took 70 hours for one police officer to recreate that accident and get the speeds and what happened in that accident. We've got a lot to do in this city, so let's look at the residents of the city, the people that have spent our money here and our lives here. Look out for all of us. You know, I don't know where all of you guys live. I know where Dawn lives. Everybody knows where Dawn lives, but I don't know. I don't know. You guys have got to step up and start protecting us. Hopefully you've allowed a very high density. Hopefully you allowed some parking. I mean, granted, there's the parking lot over at Smith's they can go to, or they can go to the shopping center on the Taylorsville side, or they can, both shopping centers on the Taylorsville side. I guess we can utilize that parking. We're not allowing enough parking spaces for people. But parking's been a big issue with me, so I'm glad these people are speaking up, because I've not been able to get any place. At your last council meeting, or whatever you called it, over, you know, parking was something you didn't want to talk about. I was going to let it go. So appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment period. We'll move forward on our agenda. Maybe there were others who wanted to speak, and we always have another meeting next week. So with that then, we'll bring it back here. Any comments from our city manager?
No, thanks, Mayor.
To our council, Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you all for coming out this week. There were many, I think, of the same faces, but other faces last week. On any zoning change proposal, it is brought by someone who wants to purchase the property or somebody who owns the property, someone that has an interest, and they bring it up, they propose that, it goes through the planning commission, and then it comes to us, and when it comes to us, we have public comment. As long as I've been on the council, I can't remember a time when any zoning issue was addressed by the residents in advance, and that you've come out and expressed yourselves. Whether you come again when this matter eventually comes to us and we have the public hearing on the matter and make a decision, whether you come or not, I want you to know today that you've been heard. And Highbury is a nice neighborhood, and we want to have nice neighborhoods, and I think that it's nice not just because of its design and its build, but because of the people that live there that care about it. I wish everybody in the city cared about their neighborhood like those that came tonight and last week have shown that they do. So thank you for that.
Okay, and I didn't do one thing, but because there are more people here, we're not going to hear from you, but how many of you came on this issue and feel the same as those who spoke? That's most everyone. There are only a couple of others here who come for other reasons, but they're some of our standard ones. Well, thank you for coming and sharing your opinions. We appreciate having that in our council meetings. That's the way it's supposed to work, is for the citizens to have a chance to share their feelings with us. With that then, we'll move forward on our agenda. You're welcome to stay. We're going to talk budget. That's one of my favorites, so if you don't, I understand. Okay, next we go to Resolution 18-52, adopt a tentative budget for the fiscal year July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2019. And to set, this is a tentative budget, and to set the budget date for the final public hearing of August 14th. We have a copy of that budget. I believe most of you have had a chance to review that. There has been an increase of approximately $1.5 million in revenue that our city manager has recommended go to various salary and benefit related items. And then there was also approximately 600, I think, in one-time savings that we're also going to use towards those, right? Were those one-time, Mr.
No, they were ongoing.
They were ongoing. Okay. Couldn't remember that. I didn't talk to you very much about that one, so I just remembered the 600,000. So that ongoing number, which is then about 2.1 million, which you can see in our information, then has been added to our current budget, which is the tentative one we adopt. We will go to August, which we traditionally do, to adopt the final budget. Changes can be made to the budget up until that time. In fact, we can actually change it during the year, but in our annual budget process, that's the schedule. And we also wait to get the final numbers from the county on our property tax revenues. And oftentimes there's a judgment levy change on there. Sometimes that's small. Unfortunately, we've also had one big one. We hope that that'll be relatively small again this year, back to normal. But there are always a few adjustments, and then we make that adjustment into our budget, so that the revenues that we receive from property taxes remain constant. So if some change is made, then we adjust the rate to get us the same amount of revenue. With that introduction then, I think the key items on our increases were some salary, a few merit increases. There was some increases on benefits. And so it wasn't a whole lot of variation there. Anything you want to specifically point out on that, Mr. Bott?
No, I don't think so. I think you pretty much covered there. I did just remember one thing, which was you had mentioned that changes can still come to the budget process, and I had mentioned to the council earlier by email, I believe it was, that
I'll still come back with some program mod recommendations, but we did choose to concentrate the ongoing dollars we had towards the personnel costs this year. So the program mod list that I will come back with will probably be almost, if not totally, one-time type expenditures.
Okay. With that introduction then, to the council.
A few comments, Mayor.
Yes.
Just for the record. One being that this proposed budget, tentative budget, does not include a tax increase. And it is additional expenditures with additional revenues that are coming to the city through those mechanisms that are already in place. With respect to using those funds for some pay increases, it's been some time since market or merit pay increases were given to the employees, and you can only expect people to work in the same job so long with every other price and expense going up to not have some sort of a raise to help them catch up and maintain some sort of standard of living. And as I have questioned the budget and been informed, those are the things that stood out to me in these adjustments to our budget.
And just a point of clarification there on the budget, when we talk about property tax increases, a lot of people, and you'll see in the paper that West Valley will probably end up with a property tax increase due to the judgment levy. And that's due to the way the state law is set up. State law says you can change the rate to collect the same amount of revenue by a certain date. If you do it after that date, it's treated as a property tax. What happens is that some individuals, businesses typically, although some homeowners will go in and contest their property taxes, and in a few cases, those contestations, if that's the right word, are accepted and their property tax is lowered. So the overall total of property tax goes down. And what we do as a city then is that when we have that chance, we then change the levy so that we go back up to the same amount of tax. It's just distributed among all the property tax payers a little differently. But it appears in the newspaper as a property tax increase. That's why you see a 1 or 2% change every year in property taxes in West Valley City, even if we don't actually raise it. That's the way the process is set up. So I just thought that would be helpful.
That is helpful, Mayor. And usually that property tax levy is $100,000 or $200,000.
Yes.
It's not significant, or I don't know that people even notice.
Yeah. In fact, Mr. Powell, do you remember offhand, if Mr. Welch, what's the total property taxes the city gets typically in a year? Just round numbers.
About 31,000.
31 million.
That as well. 31 million, sorry, that we're proposing for next year.
31 million. So the $100,000, usually 100 to 150,000. We did have one exception to that for a real problem, and we sent our thanks to the county for bearing us under that. But
yes, the other thing I'd like to mention is the increase in benefit costs is not something that's really much under our control. To maintain a level of benefits, if insurance goes up, it goes up and we have to pay for it, or change plans or drop the benefits, seek a new provider, something like that. So we have staff working continuously on managing those expenses, but those are required expenses under the current state of affairs, where health insurance is required to be provided to employees, and we have to provide that too.
okay, any other comments?
Mayor, I move for approval of Resolution 18-52, passing the tentative budget.
Second.
Ooh, stereo. And who did the tiebreaker go to? Oh.
How about with Councilmember Christensen?
Be closer to the
It
seat
was
of the
really
podium.
close.
Okay. It's property before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll turn to our city recorder for the roll call vote.
Councilman P.T. Simonu,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hume,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Okay, now I need a little help here. We need to do our 3 meetings for approving the budget and minutes right after this, but we also need a closed session to discuss security concerns. And so how would we do that? Because we can't do those other meetings without adjourning this one, I believe.
I was trying to remember myself. I think I'll turn to Eric and see, or Nicole, maybe if she remembers. I think you can. You don't have to adjourn the meeting. You can ask for the executive session, reconvene the meeting after you adjourn the other 3, if I remember correctly. Is that how to do it?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what I was going to
Yeah,
recommend.
and I don't recall under Robert's Rules of Order, is it a recess or a sauntering?
Ooh, I'm not even familiar with the sauntering
A
term
recess.
under Robert's Rules of Order. What that means.
Typically, a recess was for an extended period of time like lunch. Sauntering could be a very brief one, meaning you can't leave, you have to stay there because, so.
I quickly consulted with our attorney.
But I think we better recess to make sure that we're not interfering, because I think sauntering, you're basically still meeting.
I at least know that we have recessed before. I don't ever recall us sauntering, so I would
I
agree.
get mixed up between Roberts and Masons, because I used Masons for so many years. Okay, so what we'll do then, let's take a motion to recess for the purpose of having our other 3 meetings, our Municipal Building Authority, Housing Authority, and Redevelopment Agency. And then we will reconvene and go into a closed session. Okay?
And I can give you the specific language if you'd like, Mayor, on that one. For the purpose of regarding deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems?
Yes.
That's the reasoning?
Yes, but we're not going into closed session now.
No, I just wanted to give
We're
you-
just recessing. And then we will reconvene as a council right after that. Just so we don't get in trouble, that's the way we'll work it. Okay?
Reconvene and then go into our closed session.
Yes, once we're reconvened, then we are in a regular open session, and then we'll close it for the security concerns.
I move that we go into recess so that we can hold our other meetings.
Second.
Property before us, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We're recessed from our regular council meeting. You're still welcome to say we're going to go into these other ones, so. Which is
The redevelopment agency is first, which is Councilman Nordfelt.
I call to order the redevelopment agency regular meeting. We've had an opening ceremony and all are present. The next item on our agenda is the approval of our minutes from April 3rd. Turn to the agency.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the April 3rd, 2018 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Chief Executive Officer, do you have a report?
I have no report. Thank you, sir.
All right, our next item is a resolution to adopt a tentative budget. This is similar to what we did in our regular meeting. Anything you'd like to add?
No, sir, other than maybe just a real brief description of differences or how the RDA differs from the other budgets. It's set up by project area, of which the city has, and now I'm going to remember incorrectly, but it's 16 plus or minus 1 on either side. All of these budgets have to balance just like the regular general fund budget or that we adopted in the previous month meeting.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn to the agency for any discussion or a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 18-02.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll turn to our secretary for the roll call vote.
Mr. P.T. Simonu?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Aye.
Mr. Hume?
Aye.
Mr. Bigelow?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
And Chairman Norville?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Are there any other items that we need to bring forth? Then I'll entertain one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Which one's next, Nicole?
The Housing Authority.
Okay. Come on. Call to order the regular meeting of the West Valley City Housing Authority. We've had our opening ceremony and roll call. All are present. First order of business is to approve the minutes of January 2nd.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion to the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any report from the Executive Director?
No report, sir.
We have Resolution 18-01, again, a tentative budget for the Housing Authority for the fiscal year commencing July 1st. Mr. Pyle, anything to add to that?
Yes, sir. Just maybe one or two brief comments. Again, just to sort of illustrate maybe what the difference is or how the Housing Authority operates a little differently. Most, if not all, of the funds from the Housing Authority are grant funds awarded to the authority by the federal government. They have a different, or at least a little more complicated requirement in terms of reporting and accounting and that sort of thing, which is just an item of note or interest, nothing different than any other year that we have adopted. Also, the other one point I would make is that the majority of the money, or the largest single item that we conduct for revenue and then distribution on the expense side in the Housing Authority is $3.5 million that comes out of housing vouchers from the federal government, which then is expended in various programs on the Housing Authority, or in the Housing Authority.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I noted here that this is set for June 5th versus our regular budget of August 14th.
And that's correct, sir. And given a different opportunity or point in the conversation, I would have also pointed out, and maybe should have earlier, that the general fund budget is the only one that we bring back for August, and the enterprise funds attached. These three, we do actually schedule for the actual adoption in June because we're not waiting on the accounting, the judgment levy, and the tax rate as.
To the authority.
Move to approve the budget.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 18-01, our tentative budget. Madam Secretary.
Mr. Norville?
Yes.
Mr. Bigelow?
Aye.
Mr. Hume?
Aye.
Mr. Bueller?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. P.T. Simonu?
Aye.
And Chairman Christensen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
One more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Here's the one we've been waiting for. A call to order the Building Authority regular meeting. Note we've had an opening ceremony and all members of the Building Authority are present. We do have minutes from January 2nd, 2018.
Move to approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any discussion? Those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved unanimously. Mr. Pyle, any report of the Chief Executive Officer?
No report, sir.
We have one item of business, Resolution 18-01, which again is a tentative budget. Mr. Powell, would you introduce that and let us know of anything of which we should be aware, how this is different perhaps than the other budgets reviewed and approved tonight?
Yes, sir. So 2 quick comments. One is that the building authority itself is set up really only for the purchase, financing, and paying off of debt service for actual hard structure facilities within the city. So there's no operational costs in terms of like personnel or other sorts of operations. Due to that factor and different projects over the years, you will see this budget vary wildly, would be the term, over the years, I think. And so you'll see it very high one year, very low next year, just depending on what is actually happening from a transfer and project standpoint. This year, for example, it's very low. We haven't had a lot of activity run through the building authority, but other years you can see it higher.
Thank you. To the building authority for any discussion or a comment or a motion?
I move for approval of resolution 18-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion to the motion? Then let's call for a vote.
Mr. P.T. Simonin?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Mr. Hume?
Aye.
Mr. Bigelow?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Nordfeld?
Yes.
And Chairman Mueller.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Any new business? Seeing none, we can conclude our meeting with a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
See, if we recess, let me just clarify with Eric. Do we have to have a motion? To reconvene. So I need a motion to reconvene.
I would move that we reconvene the regular meeting of the city council.
Second.
Properly before us, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The only thing we need to finish up now will be to go into a closed session for the purposes of discussing security concerns. So I need a motion to do that, after which we will adjourn with no further business.
I move that we enter into a closed session to discuss the deployment of security, and that we would then adjourn without discussing anything else.
Thank you all. Let's see that second. Second? There you go. See no discussion. This one you say we don't have to do the roll call vote, as I recall. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Passes unanimously. We will go into a closed session.